So welcome, folks. Oh, she's gone. Oh, Charlotte's gone. Welcome. This is going to be a very intimate group, but thank you for turning up because it was stiff competition. So I'm very grateful for you to turn up. So what I'm going to share tonight is, or tonight for me, in Asia it's afternoon, late afternoon, is being solution focused during a pandemic. And what occurred back in March when we were told we were going to go into lockdown. Welcome, folks. If I can get you to put your videos on when you connect. Hi, Yvonne. Thank you for your video. Oh, she's gone. So back in March, when we suddenly went into lockdown due to COVID, suddenly I had to decide, well, all my work got stopped. And it was like, what am I going to do now? You know, how am I going to, the word of the moment, pivot to get work? You know, because suddenly 23rd of March, all my work got cancelled. So I thought, well, one way was to stay connected and be front of mind for previous clients and potential clients was to run these sessions called Being Solution Focused During a Pandemic. So I did them free of charge and thought, well, I can give them a taster of what solution focused is, but I also can stay in contact and they get to try before they buy. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to do this. So what I'm going to share today is basically that. But let me get my sharing happening.
While you're doing that, Annette, did you find they missed you as much as you missed them?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I mean, were clients, if you had existing clients, were they facing the same problem? How am I going to engage with Annette now? She can't come and see me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was more so, sorry, I'm just trying to navigate the sharing the slides and they're not coming up. That's really good. Okay, let me see where it's gone. My PowerPoint's not showing. Jackie, any suggestions?
Close everything else down.
Yeah, everything's closed.
Have you got it open on the screen? There you go.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Just this.
When it comes in. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Great. Thank you.
Okay, someone's got their, if they could mute themselves.
Co-host, I'll sort that out for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so let me go back. So your question, John, was, say it again for me, please.
Were your clients reaching out to you as much as you were reaching out to them? I guess.
Not in the beginning. No, it just, the phone stopped. You know, everything came to a screeching halt. Yeah. So I was like, right, how am I going to keep in contact? And at that time, I had a business coach because this government support came in to allow small organizations to get a business coach for free. Yeah. And so he was the one that sparked the idea around, well, why don't you try and keep in contact and offer something free of charge? So that's why I decided to develop this presentation. Goes for an hour, runs at lunchtime for organizations to get a taster of what solution focused is. And I thought connecting it to the pandemic would be perfect so they could see, you know, in a really hot topic, what, you know, how they could actually utilize it. So this is a beginner's session. So I'm really tapping it into your experience as well around how do you teach solution focus to beginners? Yeah. So I'm going to show you how I do it, but I'd really love your feedback when we have certain parts where I want you to interact, if that's okay, of what else would you do that would make it accessible for people who have no therapy background, no coaching background, but are leaders, because my target audience are leaders and mentors. So I do both, and I train leaders and mentors to use a solution focused coaching approach in their conversations. So they don't have to be pure coaches, but they can be coach-like in how they have conversations with people. So for all those experienced people on here, on this session, I'm going to really pick your brains in terms of what you do. So I'm going to get as much out of it as you are from me. So I love this quote, and I got it, I found someone put it on LinkedIn, and I think it's really, really topical. Yeah. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And I think solution focus really gives people a way of how they respond. Yep, how they respond to adversity, or how they respond to what's happened to all of us, which, you know, we're all in tricky situations because of COVID. So I've found, and what you'll see from this presentation, I'm very good at stealing other people's good ideas, and I've acknowledged who I've got it from as well. So what I like to do to begin with is actually help people understand, where do you focus your conversations? Do you focus on what's not working, or do you focus on what is working? So I'm going to get you into breakout rooms. So those people who have got their videos off, when you go into breakout rooms, if you could please put your video on, you won't be recorded. So it's only in the main part where I am where the recording happens. So when you go into breakouts, if it's possible, if you feel comfortable, please put your video on. So here's your questions. What are you most surprised about with how you, and if you work in a team, how you and your team have coped with COVID-19? Yeah. What is it that you have surprised you about what's happened over the last few months? Yeah. And then a quick conversation of what do you want from this session, what you've heard already, what would be most useful for you that I ensure I cover. Yeah. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes in breakout rooms. So really quickly to talk about those 2 questions. And I'll put those questions in the breakout rooms as well. Just excuse me while I... Okay, we have 4 people, so you're going to all be in the one room. I think that's easy to do it that way. Okay, off you go.
Fine.
2 minutes.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome. I'm going to put you in the breakout room because we're having a conversation. If you could join them.
You're fine.
Welcome back. So, John, since you're at the top of my list, what were you most surprised about in terms of how you and you have coped with COVID-19?
Well, I think for me, yeah, and it's not over. So when we say have we coped, I don't know. We're still coping, and we don't. It changes every day, and we're living in a constant changing situation. And I was just saying there are people who are grabbing the nettle and changing and going online and doing all that sort of stuff, regardless of what might happen in the future. There are others who are trying to revert to the past, and there are those that are sort of stuck in the middle, not quite sure what to go. But what I'm trying to do is be responsive to the client. I've got clients out there who are happy to continue to engage. I mean, we're lucky in South Australia; we're a bit more open than some states, I guess. So things are almost, I won't say they're normal here, but they're not that unnormal. So I guess that's really the main part of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Jackie, for you, what's stood out in terms of what you've been surprised about?
Well, my situation was a bit like yours, Annette. So after that first sort of mad rush to get everything online, which is what I do, a lot of the work that I do, my two big contracts were going to take me to the end of the year just evaporated. So I think I'm a bit more comfortable with it now. I'm a bit like John. I don't know what the new normal is. The uncertainty.
Yes.
Yes. And I was just liking it before in the group, which was, it's a bit like when you have a new baby. You've got a routine, but every day is a new routine.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's wake up and sort out your routine, and whatever it is for that day, it's going to be very different from one day to the next. So
yeah, exactly.
That's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm feeling a little bit weary with it.
Yes. Lots of people are saying that in terms of weary with Zoom weary. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And Loli, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Hello. Hi.
What surprised you about how you've coped?
It's almost similar to what Jackie and John were sharing earlier, but I think the transition from working in office, I work in an oil and gas organization, but the transition from working in office to working from home was quite abrupt. So people were not ready for it.
Yes.
And the transition on that, especially for those employees with families, suddenly you have kids at home, you have to manage your spouse, and you have to play the role as a parent. At the same time, you have to do your work, and people expecting 100% productivity.
Yes.
At the same time. So I think the early days, it was quite hard for people to do that. I think there should be some form of understanding that, you cannot have 100% productivity at the early days because people are still in the process of transition.
Yeah.
But luckily enough, a few weeks or a month after that, we sort of come into our new norms. So things are working. It's not 100%, but I think it's better now than when we first started during the early quarantine lockdown in March.
Okay.
And we have the good thing is we have all the technology that we needed to work from home. So that's a good thing. That's a plus for my organization.
Yes. And and that seems to be widespread, how quickly people adapted to working from home. But again, like you said, the challenges of all the other roles that we have to play that are all happening at the same time. So what I'd like you all to do is, if you could put in the chat room, what are you wanting from this session? What made you sign up for, and what were you curious about for this session tonight? If you could just type it in the chat room, that would be awesome. And then I'll keep going as well, and I'm going to come back to your best hopes in a moment. I want to actually show you in action what solution focus looks like. And for those people who came on a little bit late after I'd started, this is a session I do for people brand new to solution focus. So they're not coaches, they're not therapists, they're people who've got none of those interpersonal skills that many of us have, and they know nothing about solution focus. So this is someone who's learning about it cold. Yeah, because I work with leaders and mentors in helping them to develop a coaching approaches. And this is how I've found that works for them in terms of them getting it. So I wanted to show you in action, but I need to know, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I need to know how warmed up, and I've got 6 of you with your videos off, so that makes it a bit tricky because I like to use the warm-up scale, and the warm-up scale is where you put your hand right at the top of the screen, and if you're not prepared to put your video on, if you could write a number 10 up there if you're very warmed up for me to coach you. A 5 is lukewarm, I'll do it if no one else will do it. And a 1 is there's no chance. I'm not putting a video on or unmuting myself because I don't want to be selected. Yep. So when I go 3, 2, 1, could you write your number in the chat? Yep. When I go 3, 2, 1, 10, very warmed up. 5, yeah, I'll do it if no one else does. And 1, no chance. Can everyone put their number in? So Jackie's 5. The lady who's S. Carter, I'm wondering if you could rename yourself if by just hovering over your name so I can see what your first name is. John is 5, Lolly's 4, and Jingjing is 5. Okay, so we've got 3 5s. So given I don't know you, Jingjing, I'm wondering if you would unmute yourself so I could do this activity using you. Is that okay? Yes? No? Okay, that's all right. I will go, no, okay. Jackie, would you be my fallback?
I will be. I can't guarantee how good I'll be. I'm a wee bit tired, but away you go.
Okay. Can everyone else, could you watch what happens from, I'm going to ask one set of questions to another set of questions. And I want you to really watch what happens to Jackie when I do this. So I'm going to ask you, first lot of questions I'm going to ask you, Jackie, are a bit more problem focused. Mm-hmm. So Jackie, what is one of your challenges at the moment during the pandemic?
I've got, so some large contracts of mine have just evaporated.
Yep.
So that's what I was planning on taking me through to the end of the year.
Right. So just suddenly gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So why is this such a problem?
Well, I banked on it basically. and I hadn't taken on other clients because these were large jobs that I didn't need to take up, and I couldn't have taken any more on with them. So yeah.
That was going to fill your time.
Yeah, that was my whole dance card to the end of the year. Yep.
Wow, okay. So what upsets you most about this problem?
I think because the money that was funding the projects is actually with the agencies that engaged me. The work was fundamentally still going to be remotely done. I didn't need to be on site to do it. But the funder, it was a government department, had put the hold on everything. So, I understand why they've done that, but it's actually the reasons why they've done it are not actually applicable to these two projects.
Right. Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and you can't talk to anyone about it, so they just don't want to hear.
Okay. So what's the biggest barriers you face at the moment?
Finding new work.
Okay. Okay. So I'm not going to let you hang in that space very long. I always feel very uncomfortable asking those questions. So shake that off, and we're now going to be a bit more solution focused for you. So what would you like to achieve in relation to your work?
I'd like to find new streams of things to do. So this is my family. I've got both parents in hospitals. This is the family chat. Can you believe it?
Oh, right. Okay.
I'd like to find, I think I'm at a point where I want to do some more creative things. So do other things.
So if it was working well, what would be happening?
I would be a lot more optimistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
I would start firing up all of those creative juices that I normally have for things. And yeah, I'd feel energized and busy with it.
Okay. So has there been, I mean, you obviously haven't been through a pandemic before, but has there been a time in your past when you've handled a similar situation when suddenly work on a couple of projects stopped and then you had to find your new work? Have you been in that situation before?
Not quite as dramatically as this. But yeah, there have been times where things have just, where I've not seen past the horizon. There's nothing there. There've been a couple of times it's been a little bit slow. So yeah, but I've always got through those times too. So in that sense, it's not, that landscape's not dissimilar to the one we're looking at now. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So what would others notice if you were managing this challenge a little bit better?
Okay, they'd probably be, well, I'm busy anyway, so I'm busy doing things to try and fix this now. So, so I've got lots of irons and in lots of fires, and I'm just, being creative about things. So I've started, in a lot of ways, I've actually started a lot of this anyway. So I think my demeanour, it's certainly brighter.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the first thing that they would notice.
Great. So if you could just take one single action to move this forward, what do you think you could do?
Write up a better plan rather than trying to fire off all these different things that I know have worked for me in the past. Actually, be a bit more strategic about what it is that I'm doing.
Okay. Okay. And what would be a small step to being more strategic?
Getting my grid book out and starting to write those plans down. So rather than just thinking about it, actually committing it to paper so that I can start to form a timeline or a range of actions and move them around and formulate them into a plan. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette.
Your work is done. So I'm curious what did you notice happen in this conversation? And I'm going to stop share again, and I'm going to put you back into breakout rooms. And how many we got? I'm going to do 2 groups this time, if that's okay. Of what did you notice? Let me just recreate. And off you go for 2-minute debrief. What did you notice from the problem focused questions to the solution focus? 2 minutes. We lost John.
It's actually taking a long time to come back in, Annette.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it took me ages, that first one, it just took me ages to come back in. It was just spinning for a long time.
Ah, okay. No worries.
There they are.
There they are. Okay, welcome back. So from breakout 1, was that your group, Jackie?
Yes.
Would you mind sharing what comments they made? What did they notice?
That talking about the problems, I looked like I felt like I was shackling myself to those problems, sort of just, which was pretty true, which was actually pretty true. And then the switch was a lot more, I said a lot more in the second time round, a lot more energy, voices upbeat. Yeah, and in actual fact, my acknowledgement of this too is I've actually already started all of those things.
Exactly.
Those things actually, I'm already doing them. So it was easy to talk about because I've actually already started down that process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. John, what about for your group? What did you notice the difference between one set and the other set?
I was with Santu. We had a good conversation. On the problem talk, it's just not a comfortable place to be, and it gets more and more uncomfortable very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Especially with something like when you're talking about livelihood and the impact of losing your livelihood or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, and the problem just keeps getting bigger, and it's not the actual problem, it's what the problem might become. So it almost becomes supposition. So it's just uncomfortable.
That's right. Yeah.
The second bit, even if it's not overly optimistic, at least it's going in the right direction. And we noticed Santu commented that Jackie was much more relaxed, open, shoulders kind of went back up again. A bit more enthusiastic, So did you want to add anything to that?
It was just, in terms of just noticing, her energy was draining in the first talk, and her energy was more upbeat by the end of the second talk.
Yes, exactly. And that tends to happen, even though Jackie knows solution focus inside out, it still happens to us. When we get asked more and more questions, as you said, John, it creates a bigger problem. And how I, teach it to leaders is so you're actually creating this quagmire of a problem that helping people to get more and more stuck. Yeah, and we don't want to do that. And it actually is a disconnector in terms of the relationship as well. By me interrogating you about the problem is not helping you in any way, not any way at all. So with the solution focused one, as you know, it actually builds relationship and helps with the interaction. So we're partnering with the person to help them discover what they already know, as you said, Jackie. Yeah. And so when you're teaching, what I find when teaching leaders or lay people who don't know anything about solution focus, just that exercise, they get it. They get it straight away. And then I move to, one other thing I noticed strongly with Jackie was she looked up. All the solution focused questions, she looked up. So where that tells you she's working on, how am I going to solve this? Whereas the first set, she looked down and goes within. Yeah. So this is another tool I have found that has come from Hasten Moon, and it's the dialogic orientation quadrant. And I just, when I came across this probably 2 or 3 years ago, when I first heard Hasten talk about it, I went, that's it. That's the simple way to actually teach people about solution focus. So I say, where do you focus your conversations? On the future or on the past? So the timeline is one axis. Do you focus on the good stuff of what's wanted? So where they're trying to get to, the good stuff, or do you focus on the not so good stuff, or what is not wanted? So if we put those two together, so that's the content of the conversation. If we put those two together, we come up with what Hae-sun calls the dialogic orientation quadrant. And what our aim in solution focus is to be more in quadrant 1 and 2. Yep. But I only picked up because I had a coaching supervision session with Hae-sun a few weeks ago, and I had always been teaching this is where we direct the conversation as the coach or the leader. But really, she said, it's where does the client start or the coachee start? Yeah. And so what you'll find, and I found it with the 5 coaching sessions I had today, that always start with what they don't want, the problem they're in at the moment. So our role, and so they start here, which is the problem past. So let me move on to the next one. So the quadrant 1 is preferred future. Where do you want to be? Yeah, in the future. 2 is what's working well already. And you would have noticed from those solution focused questions I asked Jackie, we looked at, well, what do you want to achieve in relation to this? So we started at quadrant 1. Yeah. And then the next question was, have you been in this situation before? What's worked for you in the past? So we always go to the client's resourcefulness. What have they got already? Yeah. But what happens with clients is they tend to start here in quadrant 3, which is what's not wanted, the challenge they have at the moment, and they want to talk quite a bit about it. And the goal or the aim of the solution focused coach, practitioner, consultant, whatever, is how do we move them to here? So what is it that you want instead? What might that look like? And then obviously we don't go to, if you keep the problem going, let me just turn something off. The unwanted would continue. Yep, so we steer them away from the problem as soon as possible, because you don't want to be disrespectful, that some people need to get it out, and then we can shift them to, so what is it they want instead? So basically I share with leaders and mentors, so what do these questions do? They actually reframe what's not wanted to help them make movement forward. And I know some other consultants in the Europe, they actually don't call it solution focused, they call it progress focused, which is a nice way of saying, this is what we're doing here, we're making progress. And in corporate setting, that sort of fits, because often I've found, and you might have found it also, when you say you're being solution focused, everyone says, oh yes, I am that. But what they're saying yes to is, what I hear a lot is they say, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And that's what they're coining as being solution focused. And as you know, it's not that from what we know about it. So it's creating movement towards what's wanted. It's looking at strengths and resourcefulness, and it's focusing on what's possible rather than what's not possible when we delve into the problem. So,
Annette, can I just add something there?
Sure.
On that first one about creating movement, I find that if you want somebody's mind to move, it's worth getting their body to move. So when you were looking at the problem talk and solution talk with Jackie, when you went on to solution talk, I would have been tempted to say to her, just stand up for a second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, what's left behind on your seat were your problems. And now, I mean, if we were together, I'd be saying, let's go for a walk.
Yeah, okay.
Virtually, it's hard to do that. So I say, okay, let's stand up and have a stretch. Now let's, push that chair away.
Nice.
Push those problems away, sort of thing. And that's, I think there's a physical side in there as well, I think.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I do that with teams. Yeah, when we're talking about their preferred future, I'll physically get them going up to, so this is a 10 on the scale. What are we aiming for here, and get them to move in the room. So yeah, good point. Physically moving them and shaking off the problem talk is a good strategy. So this is what I find is the definition that lands for people around what solution focus is. And it's come from Gregory Bateson, but Mark McGurgo's adapted it slightly, and I'll show you where he's adapted it. But change is happening all the time. The simple way to change is to notice the useful change. Gregory Bateson said, identify the useful change, but Mark added, notice it, that's happening. And that's what I've been helping teams and leaders do during this pandemic, that the news is full of problems around the pandemic and not many good news stories around it. And so how do you channel the thinking like a instead of being a racehorse and you're just focused on the problem and with the blinkers on, you're actually widening the view to see what else is there. So I want you to think about, what are the 10 things you are most pleased about since COVID began? And I want each of you, well, I'm not going to put you back into breakout rooms. I want you to write them down. Yeah, right now, what are 10 things, even the micro things, that are you most pleased about? And I'll give you some hints here and prompters of what I'm pleased about in my life is I get to walk my dog every day, every morning. He gets a walk, and he's a very, very happy dog. And we're calling him the COVID dog now because he's going to have separation anxiety once no one's at home. But what are you pleased about? My family, we're pleased that we're having a lot more home-cooked meals than we ever have. We're having a lot more dinners together than we have for a long time. We're all exercising more than we have. I'm pleased I've managed to master online, running online programs now. So what is on your list? And let me see, you have a look at your list and pick the top 3 and put the top 3 in the chat box, if you could, please. Your top 3 things you're most pleased about since COVID. John gets to see more of his wife and enjoying really good conversations. Thank you. And you walk the dog together. That's nice. What about for others? What are the top 3 things you're pleased about? So notice my question is slightly different this time. Still talking about COVID, but my first question was a coping question. And then this question is a pleased about question. Nice, Santu. Seeing more of your daughter at night. Yes, instead of being out on courses. Thank you. Okay. And the other thing I want to share with you is, thank you, Lolly. Time spent with my family and eating together. Great. And met new friends. Yes. Everyone knows each other in my neighborhood. Everyone's out walking a lot. So what I share with them around the difference is, and this seems to resonate for leaders and mentors, that the problem side is about what's wrong, what needs fixing, the blame, the causes in the past, the expert knows best, the deficits and weaknesses, the complications and definitions. And as you know, the solution side is more about what's wanted, what's working, what progress has been made, about influencing things, about the collaboration that happens between you and the leader or the coach and the coachee. It's simple, and it's about actions. So in summary, in terms of what helping to use solution-focused conversation, which is some of the principles we know that underpin solution focus, that the solution doesn't care where the problem came from. Yep. It's the fastest route to change, and it creates better working relationships. And I also say here, it's actually the approach that's going to help in this time of complexity, ambiguity, and when we don't know how to navigate through, you know, we can just nudge it and take a small step and can make such a big difference. So I want to know from you, how do you teach beginners? about solution focus. What's worked for you when you've had to teach people brand new to solution focus? And if it's okay, I might just go through who's here. And let me begin with Lolly. Have you had to teach others about solution focus?
Not really teaching others about solution focus, but more applications on the tools towards the employee of my organization. So
Okay.
I did put in earlier on, I mean, the reason why I participated in the session is because I want to see how others apply it in their workplace as possible.
Okay.
On how do I bring up the staff motivation pre-COVID, because of the uncertainty, a lot of things, you know, the employees are, the motivation levels are not at the level that it used to be, because, you know, will I still have a job? Would I still have money to pay off, you know, all my expenses?
Sure.
So I'm thinking around, okay, how do I use solution focus to get them to think differently, you know, like rather than thinking about your current problems, but really how do we use the tool so that we change the way how they think, so that they be a bit more open-minded or be a lot more positive in the current situations.
Okay, great. Can I come back to that? That sounds a really good question, because I think the activity I've got coming up might help solve that one for you. So I've got it jotted down. Please remind me before we finish off today.
Excellent, thank you.
Santu, for you, what have you had to teach solution focus to others?
I sort of use it in my conversations, and I'm currently designing a questionnaire using solution focused questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, so after I have my conversation, and these are with sort of work colleagues, so I can't sort of contract for a coaching session, but I'll have conversations with them, and then I'll ask them solution focused questions afterwards. So I'll use the scaling. I'll ask what was helpful, and also I'm just trying to think what made a difference. You know, from the beginning to the end, you know, what was different at the end of our conversation, and why does it matter, and how would you sort of improve the service, you know, that I offered, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So yeah, I sort of weave it in conversations without formally contracting, because sometimes certain conversations can't be contracted as a coaching session, but I'll weave in coaching questions into the conversation. And just before I finish, please could you put up that black slide of the two columns, the problem talk and the solution talk, just so I can jot it down as others are talking. Thank you.
Sure. My slides will be available as well, so to everybody. Let me just go back while
that's it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so Jackie, for you, do you actually teach solution focus to others?
Yeah, I do. So I do it at the moment. I'm doing it in the context of parent-teacher meetings. So do I call it solution focused? No. Do I call it positive, constructive conversations? Yes.
Great. Yeah. Whatever works.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I know a lot of solution focused consultants around the world don't name it as solution focused. It's just the way they work, you know. So yeah, that's a really good point. What about, let me go back up. John, have you had to teach it in any way? I know that you did that work with the board the other week.
Oh, no, I've been doing it for a while, but I wouldn't say I teach it. Well, if I teach it tool, I do it through practical application. I mean, just what you were sort of talking about is that I address the client's issue of the day with an approach. At the end of it, if they say, "Oh, that was an interesting approach, tell me more about that," well, it's SF. I think to try and go into an organisation and say, "I'm going to teach SF," they treat it as though it's a new fad or something like that, and you don't want it to be considered like that. So It's not a technique, you know. It is a theology or an approach or a mindset, and you can't teach that. You've got to inculcate that into people through practical application. So that's what I do.
Okay. I disguise it as a leader, as coach. Yeah, but they're learning all about solution focus the whole time. Yeah.
I mean, what did you call it?
I guess
leader as coach.
Leaders.
Leader as coach. So a coaching program, or I do it for mentors. I help mentors use a coaching approach to how they mentor, so they don't go straight into giving answers rather than seeing what the person has already. So I'm conscious, I just want to move on to one other activity that I do with people new to solution focus and coaching, using a coaching approach, because I find that if you're not a coach and you're not a consultant or a therapist, your listening's not great. Yep, and generally they're listening, they want to listen to the problem that the person's bringing, and they generally put a lens on that they're listening because this person has they have a problem or they are a problem. Whereas in solution focus, we actually listen for the brilliance, and we're listening for the strengths. And this came from a lovely exercise that Elliot Connie does, and I was in a workshop with him, a conference last year in New Zealand, when we used to go live at conferences. But this one came from microanalysis work of Sarah Smock-Jordan and Insoo Kim Berg, that they're looking at what happens in conversations in terms of how we recalibrate every 5 seconds around whether this person's with me or is this person against me. And it's sort of, it conflicts with other body language books that are around, that they're saying the things that actually matter are your facial gestures. Yep, how much gesturing you do in your face, your hand gestures, and your gaze. And what you're doing with your arms and your legs in terms of crossed or whatever has no impact on the other person, but these things do. Yeah. So I want to show you what this looks like. And I'm wondering if Sanju, would you be my person to go through this with you? Would that be okay?
Were you saying my name, or is there someone else?
Santu, yes. Santu.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Is that how I should pronounce it?
Yes, that's right, Santu, yeah.
Santu. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions around what makes you great at your job.
My ability to listen and to draw out people's strengths, their resilience, and to be a beacon of hope for them.
Wow.
That change is possible.
Wow. So how do you do that?
I think it's through having overcome my own barriers and blocks in life, and having found the resilience to keep going and to bounce back. I stand in a place on the other side of the bridge and just call them forward. Wow. Because I know how to walk across that bridge, and wow. I just call them to cross the bridge as well.
I love that metaphor of you calling them across the bridge. That's lovely. So what else makes you great at your job?
I think my ability to give them as much time as they need to talk, and for me to listen deeply. And to listen for their strengths.
Wow.
I also can think quite creatively. So if they can, and this is cheating, but if they can't come up with their list of strategies, I have got 10 already that I'm thinking about as they talk to me. Okay. I know I shouldn't be offering that to them, but when they are stuck, I will maybe offer a few, and then, as someone else said in the group, ask them to come up with more.
Nice. Nice. So you're offering it as, you know, one of the possible options they have.
Yeah. It's
nice.
it's like I'm sparking their fire, and then hopefully the fire burns as they go away, and it keeps going, and they come up with more ideas.
Oh, wonderful. So what else makes you great at your job?
I've said a lot, and I can't think of anything else.
That's okay.
Okay.
What would others say you're good at in your job?
That I value human life.
Oh, wow.
When others don't necessarily.
Wow.
Certainly within sort of workplace environments, managers are often thinking about the service and, you know, people being cogs in the machine in order to serve the service, whereas I don't necessarily have that approach, because I value human life over being a cog within the machine.
Wow. Thank you so much, Santu. That was, I'm really pleased I picked you for this exercise.
And
so
I'll tell you something I've noticed, because I've been in a few...
just careful, John. There's
no, it's all right.
Last part to this exercise I want to do, so you can have your input in a second, because this is what I want everyone to do. So before you jump in, John, everyone, I want you to put in the chat, what was the standout strength that you heard Santu has based on what she just said about what she's good at in her job? What do you think is the standout strength? And if you could write it in the chat bar now. Yeah, what was stood out to you that was based on her story about what she's good at? Values human life. Yeah, wow, that it's amazing. What else? Humanity. Nice. Compassionate. Yep. Lived experience. Yes. Her high level of empathy. Yes. What else? You can put a second one if you have it. Shared wisdom. Yep. So just based on that hopeful, yeah, lovely. Thank you, Maddie. What you noticed from that is we didn't have to spend much time to find what was Santu's resourcefulness, sincerity. Thank you, Lily. Her resourcefulness, her strengths that were behind the story. And so in solution focus, that's what we're listening for. We're listening for what's already there that we can utilize. I'm conscious we are right on time. What's been most useful from our conversation today? If you, maybe we put it in the, you can say it if you're open to share it with everyone, if you want to go off mute. What's been most useful today?
Maybe I go first because I have to leave right after this.
Sure.
The listening for brilliance, that's exactly what I was looking for. So thank you for that. Perfect. Because I was looking for a way how I can approach them, you know, so that, because the way how you we keep on asking, okay, what else, you know, so sometimes there are things that you don't notice about yourself. It kept you thinking around things that you're good at, so that to a certain level will hype up their motivations level, that you know what, I'm not that bad, I'm good.
Exactly.
I just didn't realize it before. So for me, that's the one that stood out the most for me, because that's exactly what I was looking for from this session. Brilliant. So I would like to thank you for that.
You're welcome. And you might like to remember, Frog, forever recognize others' greatness is always lands well.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you.
You're welcome. John, I cut you off before, so What's been most useful for you, or you want to go back to what your comment you're going to?
No, I was just going to comment one thing on Santu, because I've been in a number of sessions with her today, and the one thing that's really stood out is, and she wouldn't say it herself probably, is just thirst for knowledge.
Ah,
That,
right.
That
Loves learning.
That will make you better at your job, without a doubt.
Yeah, exactly. Nice, nice. And how was it for you, Santo, that exercise?
It was difficult to try and identify lots. I mean, I think I came up with 3 or possibly 4, but it's difficult to keep going. You know, it's often hard to identify. You know, when you say what do people think of you? I was thinking, I don't know, because I don't ask them. Like, I don't go around asking, what do you see as my strengths? Can you give me positive strokes? Like, no one goes around asking for them. Sometimes people are sly and manipulative and try and get positive strokes in a sort of roundabout way, but no one ever asks that question directly to others.
No.
So it's very hard to know how people see me.
Yep. And what we find is the more you ask what else, the more gems come out. So we get the top of mind things for the first 2, but when you get to the 4th, 5th, or 6th, what else, you get real gems coming out then. And so the purpose of the exercise is for leaders to see that you can hear strengths by just the shortest conversation. You can hear them there, and it's how do you notice those that's really important. So I'm really conscious of time. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm always posting things about Solution Focus on there, and it'd be lovely to connect with you then. So thanks everyone for showing up this evening for me, afternoon for you. What would you like? Would you like something? Who was that?
Oh, just put this last slide back so I can write down your email address, your contact info.
Okay, we'll do.
That was too quick. And we want to be in touch.
Okay, all right. So thanks everyone. Thank you, my fellow Solution Focus Down Under colleagues, John and Jackie, for coming today. Thank you, Santu, for being the guinea pig for the last activity, and Jackie for being my coachee for the first activity. And thanks everyone for coming along. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Annette. That was wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
See you, folks, and I'll stop recording now.